and for so many reasons. If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Time, it's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. I am so honored to bring today one of my just favorite people on LinkedIn. And really, I don't qualify everybody, but a good friend. And hopefully you'll find that to be the case too. We've got Matthew Rolnick here. Matthew's got a great background of success, but more importantly, what he's moving towards is just phenomenal. So the word of the day is innovation. We depend on the audience to really drive the conversation, direct us, make us as relevant as we can, and give you some wonderful takeaways that you can actually use after the show and get value. Just to start it out, Elizabeth is here. Elizabeth is going to be here for her first time on Friday. She's a great lady who's doing some phenomenal things, and use this opportunity to see who's here, network with them, connect with the people you think have alignment, get as much as you can. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew. Matthew, share a little bit about yourself and your first thoughts on the word innovation.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you having me here. I love LinkedIn, LinkedIn Live. I consider myself an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. I'm the VP of Strategy and Innovation at Yaymaker. We do corporate team building events, best known for paint nights. And then I'm also very, I'd say, entrepreneurial as well, where I help my wife with real estate. I do consulting and speaking. And when you talk about the word innovation, I believe innovation's always trying to improve, whether it's taking a new idea or taking an existing idea and making it better. And for me, I really look at innovation within my own company. How do we make experiences more engaging for clients, as well as kind of what you're doing as a thought leader, as an influencer? How do you be more innovative? Like LinkedIn Live is one of the channels that's growing, and how do you, rather than just posting content? So I'm always looking at ways of collaborating and improving and learning. So that's what I think about with innovation.
Terrific, terrific. And I really mean that. Innovation can do so much because in a way, if you start out with the in part, it's actually internalized, right? Mm-hmm. And then what do you come up with? What is the better mousetrap? Are you always looking for something new? Because in this dynamic world of change, there's always going to be more new. Even if you don't want it, it's coming, it's there. Like AI, I think is at the front end of something that if you can add that on top of what everybody else is just using. You take a LinkedIn Live, you add AI, you got a competitive advantage that's just tremendous against big numbers. With that said, I could see the audience is starting to light up. Like we said, hello, Elizabeth. A pleasure to meet you, Matthew. A great connection. Kelly, who's been here for 9 months every week, at least 1 or 2 shows a week. Anchor here. So happy to have Kelly. Just a great marketing individual, and she has her own show, The Awesome Journey, at 1:11 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesdays, with Christy Howard. Thank you, Kelly. Carrie's here for his jokes. Thank you, Physiology. Kristen's here. Good morning from North Carolina. We get back with Elizabeth. Love that word, innovation, creativity. Ashif, who's just a phenomenal gentleman up in Toronto, here every day with great quotes and insights. Can't thank you enough, Ashif. And actually, Ashif introduced me in a sense to Elizabeth. So that's how it works. And now Elizabeth is on the show this Friday. Sorry, I don't care for it's not authentic. Okay. And that's the beauty of conversation, is you want diversity, right? Dennis, who is our poet laureate, Hood, innovate and create better than debate. Great. Coming back to you, Matthew, we got a lit up audience here. And I believe innovation is all about getting more distinction and differentiation in your attraction from others. So how do you use innovation in your communications?
Well, I think there's a lot of aspects of it. One, I think, is, community and learning from others and like-minded. So again, I'm passionate about LinkedIn and marketing, and I love being a super connector. And so like AI is one topic that people can learn a lot from. There are definitely, I see a lot of companies and individuals using it to grow. But like one thing I did on LinkedIn is I started my own, and I think, you talk about this whole mastermind concept. I found a dozen people that I'm connected to that all have more influence than me, but I decided to be the focal point. And literally, I'd say every few weeks, I'll send some content or ideas and encourage them to share. We're on our own private group, and we're sharing best practices. And learning about that helps, I feel, myself and others be more innovative because they're taking lessons, what's working for each other, and incorporating to their own lives. So I feel like it's constantly learning helps you keep improving things and outside of your own niche. So let's just say you're in web development, people get really caught up talking to a lot of people in their own niche. Talking to other thought leaders in other industries can also help give you new ideas, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been proven over time that knowledge share can move the needle so much faster. I mean, people are always thinking how to make it better, but they should also be thinking how to make it quicker, right? How do I get to my new ideas? Who do I depend on for those ideas? And if you got 8 people aligned with you doing something similar and you do meet once a week or whatever period of time, you're going to get 8 times the experience you have within yourself. But now what you gain is context.
Yes.
If only I can do it, it's not worth much. If other people can duplicate, scale, and make it sustainable, that's where it all kind of comes from. Dennis, okay, let's see if we have some good ones. Okay. Well, we've got one from Kristen, innovation equals out of the box for sure. So, with your company, what are you doing that's really the most exciting activity for people you serve?
Well, I'll share. I mean, we had to be really innovative. We were known for paint nights. We used to do in-person events. We've done over 300,000 events, bars and restaurants. When the pandemic hit, our revenues basically went to zero, and we had to innovate. You hear the word pivot or things like that, but we started adding all these virtual experiences. And again, it's listening to your audience. Even though we do paint nights and plant nights and all these creative experiences, I noticed a lot of HR leaders were reaching out to us and they wanted to talk about corporate culture, employee engagement. But I realized I'm looking at where people are investing, and they were investing in DEI and mental health. So what I thought was a little innovative, or, we started curating speakers that were mental health speakers, DEI speakers, celebrities even. And we found a new revenue stream and a whole new channel from that. So I'm extra passionate with the authors, speakers, influencers that we have as speakers, where you get these large companies that are wanting these speakers. So that was one area where I think we've utilized innovation, but it really came from listening to our audience. I'll share one other thing too. Again, I'm a big believer in collaboration and in instilling that culture. So if you work for a company, I think encouraging a collaborative culture sparks innovation. And if you're a solo entrepreneur, I think it's so important, like what you're doing, is building a community, connecting with others to keep spurring those ideas. And actually having structured brainstorming meetings, I think, can amplify those innovation ideas. So
yeah, no, that's great. I think you really articulated that really well, because what I took away, one of the elements was adversity could actually bring you to a better place. Because, the challenge with being really good at what you do and then working really hard at it and thinking about all the time, you can do things that typically couldn't get done. So sometimes you're riding a tough horse, then until you get knocked off of it.
Yeah.
Right. You got to get back on a new horse and you say, wow, I would have never been here if it wasn't for walking out of there. And typically people aren't quitters. So they continue to extend their stay because they don't want to accept that for whatever reason, it wasn't what they hoped it would be. And I think through really context of feedback with people around you, anytime you put something on you're really proud of, you bought a hat or you bought a pair of shoes, right? Or you got a haircut, whatever it is, the first comment frames your new thought of it.
Yeah.
If someone said, boy, those shoes are awful, or maybe not that bad, your thought would diminish. But if 8 people then collectively, and that's why polling is so important on LinkedIn,
yeah,
right, is once 8 people, well, 6 loved it, 2 didn't, and 1 didn't care. Well, hey, it kind of confirms what I thought. And if you always look at not having to make the final judgment, right, you can say, I'm collecting data, I'm getting feedback, and that allows you to make those pivots and those changes easier because you haven't totally committed to going through with something no matter what. So I think there's benefit in listening, hearing, and knowing that, there's people you've yet to meet this year, things you've yet to learn that you can to complete so much to make it innovative. And, after a while, I think it's energy. You see people walk in a room and all of a sudden it lights up because they're walking in with confidence, with strength, and it works the opposite. So, bringing it back to you, Matthew, culture seems to be so important, like you say, in innovation. What are you seeing most of the time being low-hanging fruit for a lot of organizations that could improve that?
Well, you bring up a lot of things. When it comes to culture, I see, Kristen Lynn's comment about innovation equals outside the box. That is definitely true. Out of the box creative can be with innovation. However, there also can be just small improvements. Someone in accounting could think of just a different way to process something to get payments a little quicker, things like that. Or there could be just a small improvement with the customer service thing. To me, those are innovative ideas that are just small improvements. So that's one thing. But to me, it's all about encouraging a culture of taking some risks, trying things. And as you talked about, not being scared of failure. So for me, CEOs and leaders that encourage their employees to speak out, share their opinions, and not be scared to make mistakes. I feel like that's all part of the process. It also ties into LinkedIn too. I think I've seen a lot of people that work for companies, they're scared to post anything because they're worried it's going to come back and bite them. And I think a strong culture encourages individuals and employees to be these brand ambassadors and share things in their own voice, because it's only good for the company. Obviously, there's some bumpers. You don't want to talk about politics, religion, certain sensitive subjects, but you put a couple bumpers and let people be themselves. I think instilling that culture and, again, changing that mind frame that a failure can be a step in a positive direction, I think is really important.
Absolutely. And I think that gets reinforced and validated by the response of whoever it is you report to when something like that happens, right? Is this a learning experience, an earning experience? The idea is no one's going to know as much as everybody else. But how do they get there? And how do they get there without the stress of, oh man, I dropped the ball. Now I'm going to hear it for the next 30 minutes. And it makes you want to take less risk if you get more punishment for any risks you take. The other element I think that's so important in that discussion is collaboration, where you gain investment on everybody before you do it. You get sign off, you get feedback, whoever it is, you should explain, here's where I'm going, here's what I'm going to do, here's how I'm going to do it. I'd love to get some benefit of your advice. Okay, this is what we're going to do. So if you carry it out, you've already got permission instead of having to go for forgiveness all the time, And I think at a certain point, it's the trust and the honesty and integrity of people within the organization.
Yeah.
Right? That they do what they say and they say what they're going to do versus, well, we never anticipated this or whatever the case. And, people are people. And I learned so much from being on the other side that when I decided to go to the ownership side of things, I knew what it was to work for a little bit of money. I knew what it was, and actually when I did turnarounds and restructurings, I used to always go to the people on the floor, the
Mhm.
retail people, the warehouse people, because
Mhm.
they were the ones in direct contact with what they were doing, with the customers, with what was happening.
Yep.
Most people minimize them, and they felt that too. So when you give everybody an honest, open voice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How important is that, Matt?
It really is. I talk about it all the time. I consult CEOs, and really I encourage them to try to get thoughts and opinions from every employee at all levels, even like gamify it, turn it into a contest. I saw Elizabeth Falloon talk about how do you encourage people who lack innovation. In my opinion, I see people all the time will see problems, and and if you see a problem, think about what could be a better solution. And again, so if it's just taking something that you think you know well, and then just sharing an idea how to improve it. So I encourage that. So, but it can be a baby step. If you work for a company, you can share one idea with another colleague or a manager or things like that to say, hey, here's something I think could be an improvement. What do you think? And get their feedback. Because if you can understand what's the most important mission or vision for that department or company, and then you can think of an improvement and how it ties into the overall growth, that can be really powerful. So I've learned not only taking an idea of innovative, but then how to present it and how to move it forward so it can turn into a reality. And going to Kristen Lynn's other comment about it's really having a growth mindset. I think if you have a growth mindset, being innovative comes a little more naturally because you're always thinking of growing and improving.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the key is innovation is meant for a longer term effect than a short term effect, you know. And here's another element that always can come into play is people always say it's not the money, it's the principle, right? But how much money does it take to now become more important than the principle? And what happens when someone has to address that? Right. And I'll give you a story. When I had my businesses, I had a young girl come in, uh, bright, because of family circumstances, couldn't really get beyond high school. Right. Got a job in receivables, and the first week she made a mistake, and it cost us about $8,000 on a refund or something like that. And then everybody in the company, we got to fire, you know. And I said, yeah, but if it would have been $8, would we be firing her, or $80? It was because she wasn't trained properly. She didn't understand,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
And I kept her, you know, that was easy for me to do. She became so advanced over time. She was like my right hand person, did so many things because she knew that she was on the chopping block. And most companies would say, hey, we don't even know this lady. Why give her this? But it was also everybody around her who was looking in the organization. How are they going to treat this girl? Right. And when you can show something that most people don't, you keep people, right? Because you're investing in them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the key is what investments do you make in the company? What reinvestments do they make in you? And everything is reciprocal to a point, especially if it's deserved, not just needed. With that, we've got some more comments. Kristen, I think, says, yeah, we talked about that. Uh, Okay, we talked about that. Here's one from Elizabeth. Most companies feel threatened when employees come forward about changes within the company. My experience. Well, you got to feel your way around. You got to get a sense of what is, you know, what kind of company it is. Is it employee driven and focused, or is it managed, you know, is it top down or bottom up or somewhere in the middle? And I think if you have, most people just want to be based on merit and performance. You know, people would just like to be focused on that, not politics, not bureaucracy, not crazy meetings. Um, I think that, you know, you encourage or discourage people when they come to you and how they leave you. And a lot of times it's like, well, what are you here for? You know, And at the end, did we accomplish this? Or do we need to have another talk? Or you want to get back to me? Whatever it is, it has to be equal in the ability to say and do what you want, especially if your intent was well. Kelly comes back with, and Kelly's been heavily involved in supporting and building teams. I view business problem challenges as the catalyst, spark to innovative solutions. It makes it fun. So good. What do you think about Kelly's comment, or Elizabeth?
All the above. I do think when you look at problems as challenges, that again, that all ties into the growth mindset. And I saw Ashif talking about emotional intelligence. And I think that's so important. You know, people look at people that are really bright, Ivy League, their MBAs or things like that. But people that are really have high EQ, I think is really important. And I think it all starts from the top. For me, ideally, you want, if you work for a company, to find a CEO that has a high EQ and cares about people. I think that is the strongest foundation, because then it trickles down and others will be able to be more themselves and take those risks. So I think, again, you're learning and practicing emotional intelligence and empowering in the long game. I couldn't agree more. So I'm a believer in that. And I think it all ties into the things we're talking about. It's collaboration, it's trust, it's, stepping out of your comfort zone and willing to take some chances. That's all going to improve. And, but the reality is, as it's shared, I mean, I think it was Elizabeth that may have shared, some companies don't do that. There's always going to be some politics. People are always trying to CYA. They feel threatened with somebody under them that has ideas, or it's, that's not the way it's been done. I laugh. I've heard people say, I want to be innovative. But you share an idea and then they say, has it ever been done before? Well, then I'm too scared to do it. And it's like, I thought you wanted to be innovative. So, I like to encourage people to take a few more chances, a few more risks. So,
yeah, that's funny. I mean, you bring so many great ideas to my mind, hopefully the audience too, and especially with your enthusiasm. I remember I was doing a restructuring and I had to deal with creditors and making a deal. And somebody flew in from a company out of New York and, had a meeting. And I asked for something. And the person said, we've been around 100 years and never have we ever entertained a request like that, right? Yeah. And I said, well, geez, 100 years, you know what people were driving 100 years ago?
Yeah.
Don't you think today's the time for a change? So, people who aren't open diminish themselves, right? Because just right before someone was going to say something or share something, they decided to absolutely say we don't do something. It's easier to say we haven't done it, but hey, under the right conditions or situation. And I think that's where you have to be the better person. And, I know there's a lot of people working for people that they wouldn't have working for themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The person that hired you probably knew nothing about hiring, but that somehow they were in that position and gained that status. So it's really about what's real, what isn't.
Yeah.
And if you follow your heart and you say, hey, it doesn't sound right, doesn't feel right, that becomes a conflict. Beverly is here. Beverly hears every Tuesday for the last 4 or 5 months. Yes, I agree with you, Kelly. That is what makes business and life fun. Waves. If you're into innovation, you're hoping for some change, because it's easier to be the first one doing something than trying to crowd into something that's pretty retro and does not have any really tailwind to it, and that's what one person has. If they have nothing, they have a choice among everything. Why would you go to market without the best if you were just choosing one, right? Yeah. Or go with the best people. Mm-hmm. And most people are waiting for the door to knock, and it's going to happen when it happens, but you got to be able to open up that door and have fun playing for small stakes. Winning and losing is not the same. If you got $1 million on the line or $1 you can play with anything. You know, you can experiment. If you lost it, it's like, hey, I don't even remember what I did with it. Where I think people need to increase their risk with the level of real risk. And the risk is being in the witness protection plan here on LinkedIn Live and being the best kept secret versus sharing who you are. Elizabeth comes back with, when there is no openness for creativity, there is no expansion or growth. And most people just show up to collect a paycheck and do not care. And that's contagious. You know, I did turnarounds that everybody who was there at the end was everybody who couldn't leave before the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the best people or the more innovative people left. The steady as it goes, don't rock the boat, do your job, don't start up, were left behind. But there's, you know, they had lost that energy, that life force in them. You know, and I think that's important. We want people to think, I feel we all have it within ourselves. We just have to support each other to pull it out. Well, that's the key to collaboration. So everything Matthew's saying today and everything we're talking about between us points to those elements of really being collaborative, being proactive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people who got promoted the most in my company were the people who said, hey, do you got a minute?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or hey, right before they're leaving to go home, they say, hey, I can I spend 5 minutes? I got an idea. And they continually kept doing that because they had a desire for whatever reason to share that. But I saw the people who weren't rushing out of the building, you know, who weren't coming, you know, were coming in early or staying late or showing up on a Saturday to catch up. And that meant a lot. So it's not only what you do, but what you show, the way you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because as an owner, people used to come to me, I can save you 2 cents on your long distance or whatever it was. And I'm saying, you're not saying anything about how you're going to make my life easier.
Yep.
Right? You're not telling me how this is not going to cause any issues inside the company with this transition. And I think that's what people have to understand. You got to get relationship oriented, not transaction oriented. What's your thought on that, Matthew?
I'm a big believer. You talk about being relationship oriented rather than transactional. To me, it's all about relationships. I find people like to do business with people who they like, they feel comfortable with, they connect, and again, they collaborate more and more innovative ideas happen. And I'm also a believer in, rather than having a competitive mentality, I have a very, again, collaborative and abundance mentality. So I'm in the event space business, but there's a lot of other companies that do events. I started to talk to them, network, and decided to share our cards on the table and vice versa. And what I found is that's when some of the best ideas happen. There was a woman named Kim Miles who does events and consulting and did a lot of the same things I did. And we shared kind of our similar interests. And the next thing you know, we did an event with Fran Drescher with one of her clients, and we collaborated and teamed up with. And so, to me, I think relationships is about everything. So anyway, so that's just something that is important to me, and I think it makes a big difference. I wanted to go back to one point because I just wrote in my notes here something to talk about to give people watching one, I'd say, tangible takeaway that kind of ties in is you once mentioned LinkedIn polls. LinkedIn polls, I feel, is underrated and can have a lot of value. And the reason being is if you have an idea, I remember in one of our leadership calls I had with my company, we were bouncing different ideas around and not sure what would resonate with people or our clients. And I posted a question on LinkedIn, and I don't remember exactly what it was, if somebody prefers a 45-minute format or an hour format, or would they prefer things virtual or hybrid. I can't remember what the exact topic was, but I remember posting a question on a poll on LinkedIn, getting over 100 responses, and then that gave me ammunition, or it gave me a case to say, hey, we never did this, but listen, look what our people that relate in our audience or people that are following me shared, and 62% feel this. And then all of a sudden, people are much more open-minded. So you talk about an innovative type of feature you can use on LinkedIn. If you have an idea, there's a way to see if other people support it. I mean, I talked to CEOs a year ago. They're like, do I want people to come in the office every day, twice a week, 3 times a week? They didn't know, but doing a poll on LinkedIn, they got a lot of their own employees to post. They got the public to post, but they got a better sense of what employees were thinking, and that helped them kind of shape their decision. So again, that's another example of getting feedback from others. But I just wanted to share that as well.
I think that's beautiful because it is real, it's practical, it works. And I think that's the key with LinkedIn. They give you same day results, right? You do a post today, by tonight, you'll know whatever it did in comments, likes, whatever. You have a decision. Do you want the same type of result tomorrow? Or where do you want to work from? And again, if you're living in a vacuum, polls, I've done a poll every day for the last year, right? Why not? Why not ask a question? And here's the beauty of it. I started out because I was numbers fascinated in the beginning. So it's like, how many numbers can I get? And I've got certain polls that would get me 3,000 responses, just automatic. And the poll would always be, how many LinkedIn connections do you have?
I remember, yeah. I think
right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everybody, they can hit a button. I'm at 7,000, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But the question then became, what do you do with this?
Yeah.
Right now, you do have 4 classes where you could say, well, these people have been on for 10 years or have 20,000 connections. Well, that's somebody who's done something here and may be involved. But when you really reduce it down, and that's what, if you see my polls, do you want to learn more details about my new program, right? If 20 people say yes, it's an inbound to outbound communication strategy. You don't talk to all 20, right? But you do say out of 3 or 4, hey, these people I want to have a conversation with. You automatically have something that says, thank you for responding to my poll. I really appreciate your thoughts, right? And by the way, I see a lot in common. Now I do. You may be a good candidate for being a co-host, where before it was, I'd like to have a Zoom, and everybody says, well, another Zoom. And you know how Zooms go? Hi, how are you? Oh, I just love you, admire you, but there's really nothing we can do at this time.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, hey, let's stay in touch. If I know somebody, meet somebody, needs you, blah, blah, blah. So by being able to take somebody who's fresh and who has done something on their own for you, recognize them, thank them, and then honor them by saying, hey, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same thing, there's a saying, it's easier to give birth than raise the dead, right? And if someone shows up and looks at your profile today, I go to that and I say, thank you for taking the time to visit my profile. They couldn't have gotten there by accident, right? Either they heard something, thought something, saw something, decided to check you out. And that's why your profile is so important.
Yeah.
So it's the nuances, it's the facets, it's the things that make you shine when nobody even knows it exists, that gives you another competitive advantage, because there's 970 million people on LinkedIn. There's 20 million who do anything during the week. And there's only 36,000 newsletters. There might be 100 LinkedIn Lives that have any relevance. I know about 10 or 12, and I'm here every day with everybody. So you want to be where the numbers are supporting you and having the activities that people aren't used to seeing. Because if you're just one of a million, that's how you're going to be viewed. With that said, Linda's here. Linda's a constant individual who just brings a lot of value. Life changes and evolves, but some people are unsure, but love finding a company willing to show ways for us to show and share, to invite others into making a choice instead of just wanting to stay the same old way and feeling blessed. So what do you think, Matthew? I mean, everybody is dealing, I'll put it back up. Everybody is dealing with transitions of some sort, workplace, relationship, financial, you name it. It's like musical chairs with less chairs and faster music these days. How do you stay on top of this whole thing?
I do like Linda's quote there, and she talks about not wanting to stay the same old way. I think professional development is just a topic that's important. We don't want to feel stagnant. We want to feel some type of growth. So I think that's important. I think companies that encourage that, as well as this whole connection. I saw a couple comments about, we want to be treated as humans. There's a reality. Humans, companies do need to make money, bottom line. Large companies have shareholders. Pressure is on, but if you can do it in a human way, it really helps. So again, I feel like all this stuff is really important. I do have to share though, as you were talking, what I like what you do well is the world's changed, selling's changed. So cold calling and emailing is not as funny. Social selling is a topic I like talking about. And what you're doing right here is it's first building a connection. People will see your content. You're giving them free information to share. And then that can open trust, likability, and the opportunities of other things that you provide. So I think you can be strategic in how you go about things as an entrepreneur. So I think that can be important. So anyway, so those are just some of the things that I think can help people. But again, it goes back to your saying we want to have relationships and build. And by the way, I'm always trying to think of your audience, whether they work for a company or they have their own side hustle or business or an entrepreneur. Hypothetically, if somebody owned a pet sitting business, I feel like there are things that you do that they could kind of mimic in certain ways. Like they could share more content on how to take better care of your pet and ways of fun ways to play with your pet, and also do a LinkedIn Live about it and build the community of other pet lovers. And then if they have services, whether it's pet sitting, whether it's, having pets overnight or dog training, whatever. But I feel like from an entrepreneurial standpoint, which I think a lot of people are here, it's like, again, you want to first think about the relationships. You want to think about the community, and you want to build on that, and then think about innovative ways to grow your business as well with that. So,
great points. Honestly, very good points. And what I've also learned is you'd rather do more with less people than less with more people. Right. So again, if you can build your community, and I look at this as a company. So just like when I started my company, it was me and my wife and my dog. And we borrowed 10 grand on a Buick and we got into business. And the first employee was tough because you had to pay somebody and you were working for yourself and working for nothing. Mm-hmm. But how you treated them also became the opportunity how the next person would come in, because that person would ask that person when they're working, how is it around here? Or how do you get ahead or whatever? And if you kept investing in them, because most people think, oh, I gave them a paycheck, they owe me their time or their life or their thoughts. And, that's just the transactional opportunity. But when you really get to know people, I can't tell you how many people come to my office. I need a plane ticket. Someone passed away. Everybody was 1 or 2 weeks away from not being able to pay their bills, and people would get into situations, whatever it was. And I'd always work with them because I know the whole family. I know everybody would say, how'd you get here? Right? Oh, well, my company thought it was important that I be here. Things of that nature. I had a bowling night every month, and everybody's family was welcome. Right? Free food, free bowling. I can't tell you how many grandparents thank me for giving their grandkid a chance, or their parents would tell me something, or their wife would say, thank you for this. And, it gets you human. And the beauty of LinkedIn Live, it is real time, real people, real conversation. And everybody has that open door. Mm-hmm. And I think the key to it in companies and opportunities like this is safety. Mm-hmm. People do better when they're safe. People feel better when someone's looking out for them. And, I used to tell everybody in my company, as a person, everybody's equal here. Right? The only thing separates everybody is responsibility, and at the same time, I never want to hear this and that. And if you were the one who practiced it, we had no parking spaces. You took your own garbage out at the end of the day if you wanted it to go out. I mean, it was so fair, and it was so different than most places. We had a birthday cake for everybody. And we had 70 people one time. It was a lot of cakes. But it meant something to take a 10-minute break and wish somebody a happy birthday. It built community.
Yeah.
What's your let me go through Omar's here. Omar's a great guy. He's got a Zoom party, LinkedIn Live that he does, where social beings and relationships is very important. Agreed. Sheep comes back with, you are now entering an innovation zone. Please proceed with great ideas, allow and embrace. Here we go with Sheep. Simple humility with humanity and nature should do it. Kelly comes back with, culture is everything. Providing a supportive and safe environment feeds creativity and innovation. And that's so important. And what's good for you is good for people like you, right? So what do you get excited by? Well, that's what other people like you get excited by, and start creating that. Most people aren't aware of it. People would come to our company. It's a simple thing, but in our reception area, we always have that little letter board, welcome ABC company, Mr. Thompson or something. And as soon as they walk in the door, they see their company, they see their name. Took about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But it was something that someone thought of. Someone wanted to make somebody special. Somebody found something out about the person and created that for them, whatever it was. And people don't forget about those little things because it makes you more human. It makes the person more personable. And now they understand there's more to be gained with each other than off of each other. And I can't tell you how many business deals I did, and people came back and said, we never anticipated this, but this is how it worked out. And I said, well, let's make it right then.
Yeah.
Right. And they would always come back when I needed something. Right. And you just said, okay, how fair are they? What was everybody's intention? What was the result? So Matthew, I know you've been in so many different interactions with clients, with investors, with partners. What has really been some of the big lessons that you learned along the way that made a difference?
Well, you mentioned when somebody treats you really well or makes you feel important, people remember that. I think it's the opposite too, that if somebody makes you feel less than or belittles you or not as important or disrespectful, people remember that too. So, Kelly says culture is everything. There's a common theme when we're talking is about treating people as humans. And it seems so basic, but you don't always see that in the corporate world. So I do think that companies should also be careful if they exit somebody to do it in a respectful way, because they're going to be continuing to talk about their experience with your company. So I pride myself, even people that I've had to let go at other companies when I manage, I still have kept in touch with them and try to help and support and want to and some of them are entrepreneurs that I still help and keep in touch with. I feel like that's just a very important thing. And I feel like for anybody on this call, whether they have their own business or in the corporate world, I feel like ideally you want to think about your, I had a professor and a friend talk to me about this, about a bullseye. Like, what's the perfect bullseye? Like, what would that look like? What is the industry? What's the size of the company? What's the culture like? What are you doing? And how close can you be to that? And knowing that it's not perfect, but that's kind of your North Star that you want to do that and keep thinking about that. And as long as you're, it's a little cliche manifesting, but letting people know these are the things I'm the most interested in, I feel like you can start getting closer to those things. Or again, the more people in your corner that's looking out, eyes and ears for you, I think that's helpful too. But again, when you ask about me, what I'm passionate about, it really goes to Kelly. It goes with culture. I'm such a big believer. There are so many companies and industries that if I worked for, I'd be horrible because I'm not passionate about it. If I'm passionate about it, I can be very immersed. I've got a little ADHD, and if I channel that well in a company, in an environment, in a product or a service I believe in with people that I trust, I can thrive. If I'm in a toxic environment, it's much harder. So I'm blessed. I'm fortunate. My CEO, Dan Herman, is supportive of me going on podcasts or LinkedIn Lives like yours because he knows I'm passionate about it, but he knows that it's building my brand. And Yay Makers, or brand as well. So I encourage people to make sure that they find companies or leaders or create a company that kind of embraces all those things.
Yeah, and I see more of the toxic than the other, which also gives you a competitive advantage. And I think most of that is based on the insecurity of the leadership, right? They're afraid to share information. They're afraid someone's going to get some benefit beyond themselves, and some of the greatest people I've talked to share 97% or a high percentage of everything they learn every week with everybody they know. Why? Because they know 90-some% will never do anything with
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And if they did, and it wasn't related to the person, it didn't have much value anyway. So you can't, I'll tell you an example. Early on LinkedIn, I was after numbers. I went from 5,000 to 25,000 connections in like 4 months. I really aggregated like 200 people I tagged and got into the whole, let's get it to the next 1,000. And I look around and 2 people took my exact post and didn't change a thing and put their name on it.
Okay.
And I'm like, you could have taken the format and adjusted it to your plumbing business, but it was like, just even lazy, let alone, copying. And initially I said, well, that's frustrating because it took me months to get to this quality post and now someone's using it. And the next thing I did, I looked at the bottom for comments and likes. And I had like 400 likes and 200 comments, and they had like 3 likes and 1 comment. And it's like people knew who this was coming from, and these people didn't have an audience. And I think that's so important. So many people want to do content, and no one's ever going to see it because they did nothing to bring people into the room.
Yeah.
If you do a LinkedIn Live and you have no audience, you're going to give up on yourself because there's too much of you for you and not enough of them. And I think people have to realize everything good sometimes takes more time, more thought, and it should. But because of people's timetable or financial situation, hey, we got to go to market.
Yeah.
Whether or not, this is what we got. And that's never going to get better and maybe worse for it. So I think it's about having a measured approach.
Yeah.
And bringing that community. You got to be the model of who you're looking to attract. And I always said, even when I was in my retail stores, make a friend, then make a sale.
Yeah.
Right? Get to know somebody, let them get to know you. And all of a sudden you realize, and I have in so many occasions, people made deals with me that were horrendous for them. And they knew that going in. And the reason they were doing it was not for the money. And they explained that I'm backing you because of, you deserve it, or, hey, I can afford it, or I just want to show you this. And that changed everything, right? Because again, it's the right 2 people coming together the right way. You can't do that with everybody, and everybody takes a little bit of qualifying, but that's where the questions come in, right? Now the responses start to formulate the reality beyond your perception. So, I know that for what you do, Matthew, you've got to be good at reading people and understanding what it is that you can do to make them as positive about you and what you do. So what's typically, an exercise you might go through with someone who's coming to engage with you?
I'm a pretty forgiving soul, and I like people, so it's really easy for me. And again, I have more of abundance mentality. I'm not worried about people competing with things. You shared about people copying your post. Exactly. There's always going to be that risk. I mean, there's always going to be some people that aren't working as much in good faith and things like that. But I'm still a firm believer in that 5 to 10 times the opportunities will present themselves if you're helping others and not being fearful of people stealing your stuff. I laughed when I saw Kelly said someone pitched her own show, but I'll share one tangible example is, my wife, she does real estate in the Chicagoland area with Berkshire Hathaway. I help her a little bit. And I was asked and I help her with her LinkedIn. I was asked by someone, I work with her in her office, named Tammy Bobbitt, who I really enjoy working with, but asked if I could talk to all the real estate brokers in Downers Grove in the western suburbs where my wife has really built her business. And I decided I'm going to go in. My wife was supportive, and I shared best practices on utilizing LinkedIn. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's kind of stupid because you're sharing with all these other brokers competing with similar buyers and sellers, your best practice. Isn't that one of the things that helps your wife stand out? And my attitude was no, they're out there, encourage that collaboration, innovation. And what was interesting is kind of like what you said, most people really appreciated the presentation. Only a couple really took action with it. But afterwards, there were new potential opportunities or partnerships or that kind of sprouted and strengthened the relationship. So I was able to position myself as a thought leader, give people tangible advice and tips, and I don't feel like it hindered her business or our business at all. But I believe having that mentality of, hey, I'm going to share a lot of free stuff, and some people may give me credit. Some people probably share your post and say, great job, and others will not. But again, long run, I think having that abundance mentality, you'll see more opportunities come that way.
Yeah, and I think that lends itself to consistency too. Mm-hmm. The other thing is every time you do something that's new or even a little risky in your own mind, you're going to learn more from it. You're going to get more feedback than you would have without it. Mm-hmm. And you can't always think of everything you do as a one-directional gift to everyone else. If you do, you're not really taking into consideration what's available or what's provided for you. And, it's like starting a fire with, just a flint, right? Sometimes all you need is a spark, and all you need is to keep someone in the game, because if someone is more worried about something than the situation is, you have an advantage, because when you come through, they're going to think, I never thought, or I didn't even know you could do this. And it's really getting people a win. It's that low-hanging fruit. What can make this person a believer? What can I do that someone's got to take the first step, so I'll do it. If nothing comes back, there won't be another step. If something comes back, maybe we can work with that. So it's all ratcheting up together. It's not having a plan that's absolute, that's nonstop, that's, and that everybody should accept. And I think that's important. And, sometimes you got to have a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. The best way to take anything is to laugh, even if because I always think, how could that happen? The situation was bad, but it's like 1 in a million, and the sooner, it's not how many times you fall, it's how fast you get back up. Petra comes back with, yes, they have taken away my career, but they didn't have the secret sauce. Yeah, so true. If all they see of you is a number, that tells you right there it's not a very great place to be. Yes, if you ask me a question, you're going to get an answer without butter. Petra, I have an old school German, respectful, committed, but too loud. Kristen says building a connection first is key. You got to start somewhere with somebody. Like I mentioned, I think the other day when I had my stores, if a person was the only person in there, I didn't let them go till another person showed up, because what am I going to do by myself? And any information, any conversation, what do you think about this? Did you ever try this? I used to always have a special of the day. And everybody that came in, I made a practice of showing it to them. And I would sell 10 or 15 items that I would have never sold if I didn't present it to everybody and share this as a deal. I think that this interchange of ideas is great, because if it's consistent and ongoing, you just have to pick up little things every day. Most people, they got to grab and go, right? They go to a conference. If they don't get what they want, conference is over. They got to qualify it. And the other element, that you can be in the back of the theater right next to the exit door when you enter something like this, and comfortably move to the audience and then hopefully get on the stage. There's no reason everybody shouldn't be doing LinkedIn Lives. And that's what I'm really focused on now, is helping people onboard them, get them in, get them up, and get them out. right? Make this a runway, and having your voice anytime you want to share it. Because most people, they can hardly come up with a post, because honestly, creating a post is harder than doing a LinkedIn Live. Really? And every day you got to come up with a new post or use the old one. Where if you get comfortable with your audience, and everybody's got an audience, look at your connections, right? Who's there? And if you announce, hey, I'm going to do a show or be on a show, what could be better? And there's so many people like Kelly, like Harvey, everybody is doing it and doing it well. So Matthew, coming back to these wonderful people, anything stick out? Here's maybe an Ashif quote, or when it comes to innovation, an ounce of execution is worth more than a ton of theory. Phil McKinney.
Nice. Yeah, I like that quote. Thomas Edison has a quote about, 10,000 failures is just all progress to making something happen. I listen to you, and it's just you use a lot of analogies. I got a kick out of when you're saying you can't start a fire without a spark. I was thinking of Bruce Springsteen, even if we're dancing in the dark. But there's something else that you mentioned that I feel like people don't talk about much, and that's sense of humor. Humor, I think, is so important in the workplace in so many aspects, or with clients or things like that, because again, it brings guards down. You have an extra moment of connection. And when people are more relaxed and they feel more comfortable, that's when people can be more innovative too. I mean, when you can use humor and you encourage humor, I think humor can be very, very powerful. And I don't feel it's a topic that we talk as much about when it comes to the workplace, connecting with clients, connecting with your audience. You think about it as an influencer, things like, people have short attention spans. You want people to be engaged. So incorporating humor and getting better at it is one way to go about it. By the way, did I tell you the joke about the jump rope?
No.
Let's skip it. and anyway, the point is just, if you can, sometimes we'll open up meetings and I'll do my stupid dad jokes or I'll do some corny things, but I do think elements of humor can be very powerful when it comes to this whole collaboration, human connection, things like that. But that could be a whole other topic. But and even LinkedIn, Fridays are a day that I feel like are a little lighter. I'll try to, sometimes Fridays I've used for more humor for LinkedIn or doing things more lighter, things like that. But that's food for thought too. I used to do my content where I had different themes each day. I don't do that now, but Fridays were always my fun day.
Yeah, and I think sense of humor makes everybody, like I say, feel a little bit more relaxed, and they also know they're with somebody who has a sense of humor and enjoys sharing funny situations, really taking things a little bit off the serious side, because too many people jump right in, and now all of a sudden it's all numbers and explaining, versus really who are you? Because that's who you're going to be doing business with. I've done business with people, and you could have hundreds of pages of documents, and it means nothing unless the person you're with has the integrity to follow it. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'd rather know who I'm with than know what I'm with. And then how do they deal with things? And what I learned, which is a really great way to get an insight, how people talk about other people is how people are going to talk about you. Mm-hmm. Right. And if someone comes for a job and said they were a lousy boss, a crummy company, and this and that, first of all, why were you there? Second of all, why would you want people to know that, who you're going to work with? Right. And I think that's key is knowing what people are looking for and authentically providing it without having to compromise yourself. But there's a saying, tell people what they know, and they only know what you tell them, right? You create your own opportunity or lack of it based on how you project, right? How trustworthy are you? How confidential can you keep something? It's all these things to say, how can I be better? And I think LinkedIn and LinkedIn Live can make everybody better, because audiences like this act as a buffing wheel. Mm-hmm. You throw some out and it comes back at you in a different way, and all of a sudden that gets integrated into your new way that you take forward to the next person. And I think if people look at innovation as a foundation for evolution, right? I used to tell people who came to work, it's not how much you make, it's who you become here. That's what's important, because that's going to affect your relationships, your future, everything. What can you learn? What can you be? The money comes, the money goes, but you're here to stay. So I know we just hit the top of the hour. What's your final thoughts on the show we've just done? It moves so quickly.
Yeah, I love talking with you. We speak the same language. Again, it's about relationships. I love, you see Kelly keep making comments and elevating others. I'm a big believer in elevating others, supporting others. I believe the human thought of reciprocity happens a lot. So the more you help others, I think the more it will help you in return. So no, anyway, I just appreciate it. I enjoyed this conversation. It flew by. I'm hoping everybody got at least a few good takeaways from it. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, obviously they can find me on LinkedIn. So,
well, thank you, Matthew. I think you were fabulous. We've had 365 days of this, so you've had something to measure against, and you definitely came out way ahead. And you do talk the talk, but more importantly, you walk the walk. So yeah, I advise everybody, if there's some commonality, alignment, reach out to Matthew, make a connection. And if there's something more, then that's a beginning. I want everybody to have a great day. Come back in 23 hours. Tomorrow, we're going to have Kelly and Harvey. And then Elizabeth is coming on Friday. Leslie Flowers and Catherine Chadwick are here on Saturday. So great lineup. Can't thank you all enough for making this happen. And we'll talk again.